$11 billion. It's true. That is how much President Trump's shutdown cost the American economy, and that is according to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the CBO. The partial government shutdown, we know that it is over for now, but for those 5 weeks when things were shuttered, it was federal employees and the economy at large that suffered the most. The CBO released estimates today of gross domestic product for the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019 that are $11 billion with a B dollars lower than they would have been without the shutdown. In that $11 billion total, the CBO says at least $3 billion are lost permanently thanks to the shutdown hitting economic activity in the final month of 2018. For the remaining $8 billion, the economy could recover those losses in the coming months, barring any hiccups like another shutdown. Separate analysis from Standard & Poor's comes in a bit lower than the CBO, but it measures direct and indirect losses accrued during the 5-week shutdown period. S&P calculated an average weekly cost of $1.2 billion a week, bringing total economic losses during the shutdown to $6 billion. That is just an early estimate. The final tally could be a whole lot more. So let's just say it's $6 billion for now. That is still more than the $5.7 billion that Trump demanded for his border wall, the very catalyst that triggered the shutdown. Because remember, the Congress agreed on a plan in December, and it was President Trump himself who said no money for my wall. Government's closing. The government has now reopened, and it is just in time for the beginning of tax season, which starts today. But the government could shutter again in February if negotiations within Congress fail. In fact, the looming threat of another shutdown is weighing on business confidence and the markets, if you haven't seen them yet today. And we could see a delay in interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve because a lot of government offices were closed, and we saw very little economic data being generated over these last 4 weeks. So the Fed is now playing catch up and will likely need more time before they decide to raise rates again. The economic activity from furloughed workers and contract employees is a huge loss. That slowdown in spending will have longer-term ripple effects that can't be caught up or recovered even during the temporary reopening of the government. And it is very important to note that furloughed contract workers are not going to get any back pay. Financially speaking, they're not going to get back on their feet anytime soon. So for the workers who were impacted, some may see their credit scores take a hit. Their credit scores. And let me tell you, when your credit score takes a hit, that thing doesn't come back. Weeks of living without paychecks and shifting or delaying payments could have massive impact, long-term impact on their financial health. And I have to point this out, Ali. It was while we were away. I saw now Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross saying people could go out and get a loan. I would love for Wilbur Ross to walk me through that. So let's say I'm a furloughed worker, or let's say I'm a worker who was going to work every day and not getting paid. So what was I supposed to not show up for work, go to a bank, fill out forms about my financial security, which I don't have because I'm dipping into my savings to support myself? Who exactly, what bank, what organization, besides PayPal, making enough?
And credit to PayPal for being able to do that and being prepared to do that. But that was nonsense, right? And that, I mean, that's the degree to which, if you're going to make decisions about people's income, at least try and be in touch with them a little bit.
I invite Wilbur Ross to walk us through how that would work.
Joining us now to break this down is CNBC editor-at-large John Harwood. John, let's talk about this. Give me your sense of what these numbers mean to the overall health of the economy. Is it going to suffer in the face of this shutdown? And, I should be clear, potentially another shutdown in 3 weeks.
Well, it doesn't help. And look, the economy was already slowing down. We had growth of near 3% in 2018. We don't know if it's actually going to come in at 3 or slightly below. But we're projecting that the economy is going to slow as the stimulus from those tax cuts wears off, slow even further in 2020. A majority of economists now think there's a good chance that we'll have a recession in 2020. So whether it's $6 billion or $11 billion, don't know how much of it's permanent or temporary. Larry Kudlow says it's a glitch. It doesn't help. And the administration is playing with fire if they think that they're going to shut down the government again. I actually think they will not. I think that if you keep your hand on a hot stove for 35 days and have third-degree burns, you're not likely to put it back there again. But, we'll see. It's an unpredictable president.
But hold on, like a glitch would mean there was a hiccup and business will resume.
Right.
But it doesn't mean there was a hiccup and then there'll be a comeback to make up for it.
Correct.
So the
Right.
money lost isn't coming back. Walk us through something that I know it makes people's eyes glaze over, but it matters. The new numbers from the CBO project that the federal budget deficit, and the president, he loves talking deficits, it's going to be 4.2% of GDP this year. That is a whole lot higher than the average of 2.9%, which has been over the last 50 years. And it's Republicans who normally care about this. So with the number going up above 4%, what does that mean for the economy, especially long term?
Well, you get a drag on the federal budget and on the economy through higher debt levels. Remember, this was an issue, as you indicated, that Republicans campaigned against. But remember the arguments that were made to sell the tax cuts in late 2017. Republicans said that even though you were going to slash government revenue, you would make up that revenue, you would pay for those tax cuts because growth would surge. And the argument was made that President Obama never even got to 3% growth, and our tax cuts are going to get us there and keep us there for years to come. Well, if you look at what the CBO has done in terms of evaluating where we are right now, what they say is that for the next 5 years through 2023, cumulative deficits will be $1 trillion higher than they would have otherwise been before President Trump took office. So what that means is that they have not paid for themselves. But in addition to that, what they found was if you look in the long term, and if you look at through the year 2029, long-term growth is scheduled to be, projected to be 1.8% a year, nowhere close to 3%. And in fact, before Trump took office, they projected the long-term rate at 1.9%. So on either count, this tax cut, on evidence so far, is not delivering what they promised.
John, good to talk to you as always. Thank you. John Harwood for us at CNBC. It's just not. I mean, you and I, when we were in Davos, we were talking to people about a slowing global economy. Part of that is because we've been long in the tooth in this expansion. It's been 10 years. Part of that is because China was expected to slow anyway. Part of that is because the trade war is adding to the potential global slowdown. You put that all together, and then you exacerbate one at home. This just doesn't make sense. And history will judge. In 10 years, we'll look back and say, wow, just as things were turning and the U.S. economy could use goosing, the president of the United States did the wrong thing by shutting the government down.
Arnie Sorensen from Marriott told me he has looked the president in the face, put the shutdown aside, where, by the way, their business and their 150 properties in D.C. is down 30%, because if the museums are closed in Washington, ain't nobody coming on vacation there.
Right.
But he has looked the president in the face and said, tourism is down when you push this idea that America, it was a year ago the president was in Davos with the America is open for business speech. When you say we're America first,
Yep.
people don't want to come here. It's bad for business.
Yep.
And while the president hasn't disagreed with Arnie face to face, the policies he is putting in place, the rhetoric and the agenda, flies directly in the face of what business is trying to do.
But the other nonsensical conversation I have with a lot of people who say that they're not really supporters of Donald Trump, but stop saying everything he's done is bad because the tax cut was good. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.